Welcome to Iblis Manifestations. There we go. Josh, how's it going, my man? Welcome to Iblis Manifestations. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to this conversation. Enjoy your podcast. So looking forward to seeing what tonight brings.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So there's a lot of very cool stuff I think you and I can talk about here. I'm particularly very interested in your background, especially with education and what you've done from an academic sense. But I think we should also bring the attention to the band as well, Nexion, since you guys basically just released a new album. Has it been a couple of months now since the album came out?
Yeah, a little over a month. September 19th, we released Sundrung. So yeah, just brand new.
Yeah, man, fresh out of the oven. Yeah, I had a listen to it, man. It sounded pretty killer. Very, very cool. I think you got the right blend of having atmosphere, but also having that kind of aggressive edge in there as well, which usually nowadays I find in black metal, it goes quite far in either one direction, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's rare that it lands in the middle, but then also is done with good production and good quality as well, which you guys did. You know, I did very much appreciate that side of it. And yeah, you also did quite a number of videos as well, right?
Yeah, I think we did 4. I think.
God damn.
I'm going to probably never again. We hate videos. For a band that made videos, we hate doing them.
Okay, so what made you want to do them in the first place?
Because it was one of those things where you sort of you want to get the singles out there. But you kind of need something to go with it. So we were sort of the idea of the mindset that if you have a video that kind of gets it out there. And we had a friend who was really willing to for her, it was a good opportunity to kind of experiment with video making. And so we thought, because we live in this age now, it's not like, I wish it was like the 90s where you put out an album and the album's out there, but we live in this digital age. And so we kind of wanted to kind of get stuff out there over a period of time. Plus we had a friend. So it seemed like something worth trying. I don't know if we'll try it again. And if we do, I think it might just be set up a video and just set up a camera and we'll jam out to it.
Well, I quite liked it. It was done in a very much a DIY kind of fashion. And, I like that about it. I think that's, sometimes you can tell that a band spend tons of money on a video, for that same reason, just because they want to get it to have more views or more attention as a single, which, you know what, it does actually work, having some experience with that does help get you out there. But also, like, sometimes you can see that they've spent a lot of money on it, but it still fucking looks like shit,
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, is that you need to do it right if you do it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we did it right or not, but I do know that we're musicians. We have our passion is the music. We're not videographers. I could tell you all about my ideas behind the song, but I couldn't tell you how to turn into a video. And
Sure.
so I just think I think it's weird how music has blended with almost movie making, with the whole MTV turns into music videos, and now here we are in this new age where people are still making. It's almost like you feel like you have to, but you don't have to. So we figured, well, we'll do videos, but we're not going to dump money into something that's not our primary goal. Our primary focus is playing music, not making tiny movies. So
That's fair enough. That you know what? I actually really appreciate your modesty about that as well, and just being transparent about, like, the reason why you did it as well. I think that's good. I think it's one of those things, because we've had a sort of a good. I want to say, well, we've got one video that did really, really well, but then again, like, we didn't do it because we had to. Like, the label didn't give us any money to do it either. Like, it was all out of our own pocket, and we purely did it because it was like an artistic vision that we had to bring into life that also served the song and the message perfectly. And sometimes some things, especially, they're difficult to kind of like write down in like a Facebook status to explain to people. Sometimes you just have to show them. And it's the same with lyrics as well. And that's why I think that there is that kind of a value to music videos, but it's kind of like you said, you don't have to do it, but if you choose to make that your artistic and sort of an extension of your art, then it works out quite well if you can pull it
and I
off.
think that's a good way of putting it. I mean, I had said if we if I have an idea for a visual representation of a song, and I think and it really speaks to me very loudly, and we have the means to do it well, then
Yeah.
I would do it. But to make videos to make them, which we had ideas behind each of these, but nothing that we would want to dump money into because it's from our own pockets as well. So yeah, it's about picking and choosing where your priorities are when you're an underground musician, and you don't have thousands to throw at whatever you want.
Yeah, of course, man. Look, I know the feeling. I know the feeling very well. But that's cool to hear. So I really, so for the listeners out here, I am very intrigued and interested in just to know a little bit more about your background as a person. And by the way, for the record, I want to give credit to our mutual friend Kathy for making this connection. I mean, she's a badass. I love her. She's cool as fuck. But yeah, she turned me on to you guys and then said you need to go and check out these guys' band and music, and she told me a little bit about some of your background. So I'm very keen to hear. So should we say, in your own words, I don't know where you want to start with that, man.
Oh man. My own background is usually the thing I'm least inclined to talk about. I don't know where to begin with it. It's complex, it's long, but it's not that interesting. What would I don't know where to begin. What about my background? What the education?
Well, I guess, yeah. So maybe we can tap into the more, I suppose, the heritage side of things, and then also your interest in perhaps the more pagan spiritual side of things as well. That kind of piqued my interest.
Right, right. All right. Well, yeah, I've put some thought into it because I get asked. I've been asked it in interviews before, and I sort of have to be ready to give some sort of answer. Um, Plus, it's weird why an American would be the vocalist of an Icelandic black metal band, but lives in Norway, and he's the one singing in Old Norse.
Yeah. So there we go. That right there is something worth exploring.
Yeah. Well, man. as a kid, it actually starts from being a kid. And actually, I think it has to do with I grew up in a very evangelical household, but I'm of mixed heritage. And the only reason this matters is because of personal experience. I happen to, when you have parents in a family that is evangelical Christian, and you're a young kid, and also to add to this, and I actually I have severe diagnosed ADHD, and it's a blessing and a curse. But one of the things it does is it really drives you to, you're always questioning things. You have a hard time following, just falling in. So I was always questioning. I remember being 5 or 6, laying in bed at night, couldn't sleep, because I was afraid I would go to hell because I couldn't bring myself to believe in Jesus. But the only way to get to heaven is to believe in Christ. But I couldn't. No 5 or 6 year old should be having existential crises like these. But I have my grandfather is indigenous, and because of experiences with him, when I was very young, I went to Mohawk maple ceremonies. It's a ceremony in the winter time where the maple trees are given honor before they're tapped. It's a big cultural Mohawk event. I remember one time we had to stop and help a big snapping turtle cross the road because I didn't want to hit it. And these things in New York, they're monstrous big. And that was when he told me the Mohawk creation story, a sky woman falling and how the world is a turtle. And so he just told me these little stories, and they conflict. So they've conflict so much with the overarching evangelical Christian perspective that my family had. And the reason that this is important is because from a very early age, it planted this seed in me that as I got older, as I became 10, 12, 13, I started arguing viciously with youth pastors. And eventually my parents stopped making me go to church because I argued too much. But the thing was, if you're going to reject an ideology, if you're going to reject Christianity, you can't just reject it. It's not just a belief, it's a knowledge system. It's a way of being in the world, it's a way of seeing the world. So if you're going to reject that, you need to move into a different system of thinking. Otherwise, you're just saying you're not a Christian, but you still see the world in this dualist, this Christian derived perspective. And I didn't want that. And so that got me really diving into alternative systems of knowledge. And because I had that little seed planted in my head from my grandpa, it had me looking at animist or earth related or the older pagan religions of, for example, Europe, where they got wiped out by Christianity. And I was really, really fascinated in that, as well as the indigenous, as well as just indigenous and native religions around the world. And that just sent me on the deep dive into, I ended up really fascinated with the Nordic stuff. The real stuff. I didn't want the neo-pagan handout pamphlets. I wanted to really dive into the source material and really learn about how people thought, and what their knowledge system was like, and if there's any value in it today. And I think there is. So that kind of, from a young age, those little things kind of set me on this path. So I ended up in Iceland in 2012 to do my master's degree in Old Norse religion. Did a PhD after that. I'm just finishing it now. And yeah, but for me, it's not been about education. It's been about a personal path and a path of knowledge, and yeah, it's not academic. It's spiritual. It's personal. It's about how I relate to the world. It's about how I hope, to maybe influence the rest of how we relate to the world.
Yeah, so sort of like a blueprint to life and a way of being, essentially.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. In a way, it's a journey to reconnect or to, yeah, I don't know. If you reject something, you have to find something else, and then you go down that rabbit hole,
Yeah,
and then eventually you stop being the, well, I'm always learning, but you reach a point where you stop being the student and you start being the one who is sharing and trying to help others, if that makes sense.
gotcha. Yeah, that's super interesting, man. Just to kind of come back into it. So I know when you're talking about some of the fundamental differences between, especially like evangelical Christianity versus some of the more indigenous or perhaps even pagan side of spirituality. I know when you say that, everyone will automatically be thinking like, oh yes, they are very different. But can you maybe specifically point to what are some of the most fundamental differences in values when it comes to those?
Between a doctrinal, like Christianity and sort of earth-based.
Exactly.
Yeah. You've got that dualistic perspective, which is fundamental to Christianity and Islam, and these sort of doctrinal religions where there's right, there's wrong, there's good, there's bad, there's dark and there's light, and these are just not recognizable in most of these ways of thinking because it's not about ethics or morality or how you are in the world. It's about relating, and so there is no, there isn't good and evil. There's maybe harmful. I can do something that hurts something, and there's healing. But I can do something that damages something for a good outcome. But there's no such thing as sin. There is no offer of a eternal. Well, here's another way of looking at it. The focus is on the afterlife, living a certain life that's good or good, living a certain life in Christianity because you want a reward or you want to avoid punishment, versus in these sorts of ways of being, you live a life based around what you're doing right now because you're either harming things right now or you're helping things right now. There is no fuck the world, I'll ask for forgiveness later. If take a quote from Halvemal, der fei, der frændur, der sjálfur het sama, ég veit ein at aldrei dom, like I know family dies, wealth dies, we all will one day die, but one thing that doesn't die is our reputation, the thing that we do. So what you do in this world, you can't take it back. We are responsible for this world right now. I had a conversation with a Muslim coworker a couple months ago, and we were talking about global warming and ecological disasters and such. And I remember he asked me, what will you do like if global warming is real or the forests are all burning and the world sort of gets destroyed and your gods are wood idols, what do you do when your gods of wood burn? And I had said, well, if my gods of wood are burning, then we all have a problem. We don't, but as from an indigenous, or I don't want to use that word, but in these world-based religions,
Yeah.
Perspective, that which is holy, that which is sacred, is here in this world, and it's not infinite. It can be destroyed. The sacred can be destroyed. Gods can die because the sacred can be destroyed. The world can be destroyed. We can either destroy it or we can sort of maintain it. There isn't a afterlife that you can say, well, this world is just a test. I'm going to go to the next world. So that I think is a very, very big difference. Another very big difference is that we are not better than nature. We are not better or above other animals. We might be smarter than other animals in a certain way, but we're not better or more important than them. We're no more important than the ant or the mountain. we just tell ourselves we are, and we have religions that tell us that we're important and that a God gave us a purpose. But I'll give you a very brief example in the story my grandfather told me, and there's variations to the story. The first person fell from the sky. She was caught by geese who lowered her down onto the back of a turtle, who let her live on his back. And then beaver and otter and muskrat, they dove down under the water and they brought up mud and they gave it to the woman to have as soil. And then she was able to plant seeds, and then that sort of became the world. Pair that with Christianity, where Genesis says that God created the world for man to have dominion over. Man ruled, the world was given to man to rule, and he was put over dominion over the animals and the plants. It says that man was made in God's image. So in this, I gave you the story my grandfather told me, but that same idea that we're just a part of a partnership with the rest of the world. We're just one part of a greater system. We're not better than it. And we owe gratitude to animals and plants. And we are just a part of a greater synthesis that we have our own responsibility to. That's one way of looking at things that belongs to the pagan or the earth-based, whatever you want to call it, these types of religions, these traditional religions. And then you have these doctrinal religions like Christianity and Islam that say man is above the earth. He's at the top of the hierarchy below God. And as such, as Genesis says, man has the right to do what he will with it. I mean, and I think that one way of thinking, the first that I gave, leads to a sense of responsibility and partnership, and the other leads to a sense of entitlement and what's the word? Abuse, but that's not the word I want to look at. You stop looking at animals and trees as a sort of coexistent, and you start looking at them as a commodity. And so it creates very different. So as I said before, knowledge systems and ways of looking and being in the world, two very different ways of existing in the world.
Hey, just a quick moment of your time. For the past 3 years, Iblis Manifestations has been entirely self-funded. This means that every subscription fee, every piece of equipment, all of the travel expenses have come out of my own pocket. Over time, people have asked me how they can support the podcast, and to be honest with you, up until now, the answer's been pretty straightforward, and that is simply spread the word. But now, there's another way. I have set up a Patreon account where followers of the podcast will be able to make monthly donations to the podcast, and this will help cover the costs of streaming gear and basically everything else that goes into making this show. This isn't about making a profit, and to be completely honest, it's not about breaking even either, because that's certainly not been the case for the last 3 years. However, if you do find value in the conversations that we're having on this podcast and wish to help them forward, then you can now support the show. Just head to the link in description and hit the Patreon button. In addition to that, be sure to check out the Iblis Manifestations Big Cartel page, where we will be selling exclusive merchandise for the podcast. At the moment, we got the Extreme Podcast for Extreme People t-shirts, limited to only 30 copies, and the pre-orders will be sent out from the 1st of July. So the link for that is in the description. And in the future, the Big Cartel page will also include some occult accessories and jewelry, which will be handcrafted by myself. And we will also be selling merch and records by other bands as Iblis will expand into a label of its own. And, of course, it goes without saying, thank you for supporting Iblis Manifestations. It is much appreciated.
And those are just kind of things that are off the top of my head.
You actually did a really good job of describing that difference. And I think particularly the latter explanation, I think that does in fact break down the fundamental difference, is that one is human above all else, and then the other is human as a part of an echo chamber, if you will. But I think perhaps another difference, and at this moment, like without even like simply just purely drawing conclusions, I actually kind of want to break this down because I find this to be a fascinating conversation. But if I wanted to perhaps interject or add to what you're saying there, I think one of the other biggest differences is also the idea of death, because I think that I think particularly in monotheistic religions, even though there is the idea of an afterlife, I do still feel like they breed a very negative and I don't know, almost like a counterproductive view of the dead, and I do understand that in the more, as you said, earth-based religions and beliefs, there's a different connection to that. I mean, it's the same even, I've had friends of mine here on the podcast who've been to like Varanasi, and then they talk about their version of, interacting and exercising that relationship with the dead. But I do think it is very interesting, particularly the indigenous people from the Americas, the way they interacted with their dead. I think that's probably a big fundamental difference as well.
Probably, but there's a lot of different ways that different people in the Americas have relations with the dead. So it's kind of difficult to, on a podcast, for me to be able to. And also, I don't speak for Indigenous Americans. So.
Oh yeah, of course. This is more so just my own observation. That I'm trying to say is that they are more in touch with that. They have more of a direct communion. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Definitely, and it's the same in. I wish there was there's not a good word really for these traditional religions. I go to Thailand sometimes about twice a year for the last few years to I've got a cool gig. I go there and I teach about Norse religion.
Cool, nice.
But I take full advantage of my trips there to learn about the traditional Thai practices and the way that Hinduism is influenced there, and they have this combination of indigenous Thai belief, Hinduism, a form of Buddha. Well, according to them, it's very Buddhist, but their approach to Buddhism is very different than in other places. They just have this very animist way of being that actually has helped me understand sort of the old Norse perspective in some ways, because when you engage with people who live in a sort of animist perspective where the world is infused with the seen and the unseen, that you're interacting with spirits and the dead, and that they have real agency. People around the world, these types of religions or ways of being, they're very similar everywhere. There's a Aboriginal scholar, writer, researcher, Tyson Yunkaporta. He's Australian, Aboriginal. He spent time with Sami people in northern Scandinavia, whitest of the white people. And he said he was shocked at how similar their way of looking at the world is, because people, fundamentally humans, develop a knowledge system that's based around it and developed by their relationship with nature and their landscape. And that the primary force of that is, how can we create a way that allows ongoingness?
Ongoingness, yeah.
I forgot the word for it, but ongoingness.
Makes sense.
But also accepting, the key to that also is that it's not static. Actually, traditional ways of being are constantly changing because they have to be, because they have to adapt to a changing environment and a changing world. There is not a static teaching. So you need to be able to adapt with it, because the world adapts, the world changes. And I think that's a powerful form of knowledge versus, I think that when you look at well, I was about to say I hate to beat up Christianity, but no, I spend my life beating up Christianity. But you take these big doctrinal religions that are based on a belief system. I think that they try to change the world to fit their teachings. So they have an idea of good and evil, and they have this whole mythology created, and they try to place that on top of the world. And then they actually struggle when the world starts to change, and for example, people start to stray away from Christianity. What does it do? It pounds down harder and it becomes more fundamentalist. But the other way, the more traditional ways of thinking, ironically, they're a reflection of a communion with, I don't want to say the word communion, but they're a reflection of human interaction with their place over hundreds or thousands of years. They're almost like a record, like a sacred record of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a reflection of the reality. And so it also has to change with time because we change. And the world changes. So I think it's actually very interesting. One is actually very fluid and adapts with the world, and the other can't adapt. So it tries to force the world to stay within its own confines. But the dead thing, I think you're right. There's a much, I don't want to say, there's a more realistic view on death within traditional ways of being than, say, in Christianity. I don't know much about Islamic views on death, but I think that relationships with the dead especially, are much more realistic and healthy, I think, in more traditional societies.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to your point as well, I just want to quickly touch on it. You mentioned adaptation. I think that's a really big, important part of it. That I think like adaptation is the thing that, for example, when it comes to Islam, it will always fail. It can't adapt. The ideology is not open to adaptation. Christianity, slightly less so, but even then, it's going to struggle, especially Catholicism. Now maybe there are other strains and variations of it that you can kind of work with a bit more. Or especially if you look at it more metaphorically, then there's room for adaptation there, that you can actually use it as something that's personal and might even be a positive blueprint. But nevertheless, that's an important thing. But why do I mention that part? Because adaptation isn't just even to how the world functions, but it's adaptation to information. That's why. So I had my friend Ashmedi from Ashmedai from Marrakesh on the podcast a little while ago, and we were talking about the possibility of extraterrestrial activities and things like that people have seen over the years. And when you talk about that stuff, a lot of things, one of the reasons he reckoned that a lot of stuff don't come out is because the religious people are not ready for it, because it will literally break apart all of those kind of foundations.
It would destroy everything for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a good point. I've thought about I've one of the reasons why Christianity is a little bit better at adapting. I don't think I think fundamentally it will always fail also, but it's a little bit better. But the only reason is because it's a conglomeration of books that actually don't really fit together, that a bunch of guys try to cram together. So you got 60 different books, 40 something different authors spanning over 1,000 years. Because of that, there is a lot of contradiction within it, which allows people to play with it. Versus Islam is a very streamlined. It's like it's a very streamlined version of Christianity. It's like the evolved. If Christianity is a social virus, Islam is like the evolved form of it. It's very, very good at what it does, which is convert people. but Christianity's flaw allows it to be a little bit more adapted, but it will still fail because it is a text that proclaims to have the universal truth. And
Yeah.
as long as you have a text that says, "This is the truth, I am the Lord your God," they're never, or yeah, whatever, however it's worded, as long as you have a doctrine that says, "This is the truth," people will always be able to fall back on that. There's always going to be, no matter how many times you want to change the interpretation, there's always going to be Leviticus that says, "If a man lays with another man, he shall be stoned." Which, of course, I've seen people say that means get high.
Yeah. I'm saying that's exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's still, so yeah, they can't adapt,
Mm.
and because of that, what do they do? I think we're seeing. It's kind of crazy, but I think that we are seeing the death throes of these religions, even though they'll say that they're getting bigger. The optimist in me, and I'm not an optimist, but the optimist in
Mm.
me wants to see that what we're seeing with the rise in fundamentalist Christianity is actually because of a fear
Yeah.
that it's losing its grip.
So I'll tell you this, and I consider myself to be very much an optimist as well. Sometimes, almost like, I don't know. I feel like, I can always find the cracks and kind of look through. And, but the thing is that when you say these religions, this is my personal opinion. In the case of Christianity, yeah, maybe, I know, I know that it's kind of like, up and down. I think it's just it varies on location, and world events seem to have a strong impact on the faith that people have as well. But in the case of Islam, that's not going to be the case. It's not dying off, because it is something that, and this is something a lot of people don't want to talk about, but they are essentially outpopulating everything else, and time is their superpower. Okay. Now there's the conversion of, let's say, for example, let's look at it like this. If you want to convert someone, let's say you and I, two adults, sat down talking to one another on an intellectual level, us converting each other of a certain idea is one thing, or debating it, which, by the way, is healthy, is very much enjoyable, actually. I love doing it. But that's one thing. So if you might not be able to change the other person's mind completely. But when you're born into a family that tells you this is exactly what you're going to think, this is how our tribe thinks, if you go out of this, you'll be shunned, you'll be banned, you'll get acid thrown in your face, like they do to many women who have dissent or simply even refuse to arranged marriages and things like that. As barbaric and as disgusting as it is, those numbers are going to grow. And as a result, Islam is going to continue growing, and it will be the major religion of the world in, I hate to say it, probably the next 10 years or so, partially just down to the fact that, it's a generational conversion. It's not just going around speaking to adults. They're outnumbering people. That's not a conspiracy. It's just how they're doing it.
I think that you're right. And I'm not an optimist by nature. I'm a pessimist. And what little shred of optimism I had, you just killed. So,
Sorry.
no, but you are right. But the reason I say I have this hope, but this is where the shred of my optimism is that they can't, science and public discourse will eventually, if you allow it to exist, will kill Islam and Christianity. The problem is, I think, where I had this moment where I was like, ah, fuck, when you were talking was, but in places where Islam dominates, there is not allowed to be that knowledge or that exchange or that science.
Exactly.
So now in the West, so I think you're right in that it's authoritarianism, boom, 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 and authoritarianism eats up places that are more free, and ironically, it kind of feeds into one of the reasons that it's very funny. One of the reasons that Christianity and Islam both had early success in converting people was because they would encounter a people who who are already open to different. There are truths. There's not one truth. So the traditional perspective is very subjective. So we'll go to pagan Scandinavia. There are lots of gods already. There are lots of gods of this and that, and there's gods of this forest, and there's a god in that forest, and I encountered a guy who has a different god than me. We're already used to what's the word? This manyness.
Like an overlap of belief, I guess.
Yes, and where it just is, because nobody has come down and said, I know the truth of the cosmos because this thing tells me this is the truth, and you will either agree with me and get all kinds of rewards, or you will disagree with me and be punished in hellfire. Also, I have an army.
Yeah.
So, but it's very interesting where an intolerant belief system encounters a more open, subjective. I don't want to gloss over and say that European paganism was tolerant, but it had a different way of looking at the world where they're already used to multiplicity. You have people that come in and say, no, this is the truth. We're right, you're wrong. That's going to win. That's going to win because the other side is like, oh, we're not ready for this sort of, I'm right, you're wrong, that's it. Your God is a demon, that kind of a way of thinking. And that's what made Christianity and Islam very good at what they did. And now here we are in a world where, unfortunately, that way of thinking, it will always have an advantage. The authoritarian, I'm right, you're wrong, and I will shut you down if you disagree with me way will always win over the, let's disagree, let's discuss this, let's let's share ideas and then have debate or discourse. That's my inner pessimism coming back out. So
no, but the thing is, that's spot on actually, because I really wish that was more so the world that we were dealing with, But I think that there is an element of nature involved in this as well. Because to me, I always say, the ultimate God is always the thing that's woven into the fabric of nature. And that's the thing that we need to respect and to learn to go by. But one thing that I've noticed, and this is it's kind of like a harsh realization, which very much plays into Nietzsche and that style of philosophy and looking at the world. But, the world responds to strength. The world responds to power. And sometimes how that is displayed, it seems for whatever reason, like it's sort of like, whatever, like there's no, I don't know, like I struggled with this one a lot on a moral playing field, because, you don't want to bully your way through life. You don't want to, bully everything and everyone and every creature on the planet. But that's how countries even become superpowers to begin with, so that they can then supposedly protect the few, and then they'll start overthrowing governments, which is just like not protecting at all. And it's like get these things,
I think if I'm understanding what you're saying, it's I think I am following it. It's like, for example, like I'll look on social media or whatever, and because I originally come from the States, I follow a lot of what's going on in America still. And you're seeing people who are so convinced that what they're doing is to protect the good people. In doing so, they're becoming, in my opinion, we'll see soon, but they're becoming a monster. And that is the moral crisis we all face, which is do you force your way onto other people because you are convinced that your way is the good way? And because that's what all the people who force their way onto other people believe. Everybody.
Hi there everyone, just a quick moment of your time. This is to let you know that my band TRIVAX will be performing all across Europe come this November and December. We are going to be going on tour to support Absu joining forces with Zemail to do the 30-year anniversary of the Son of Tifereth album. And we will also be joined by Ancient. So this is quite a legendary lineup, as you can already understand, and it's an honor for us to be a part of it. District 19 are doing the courtesy of organizing this run, and we're going to be playing a lot of different places. We're going to be doing quite a number of shows in Germany. We will be playing in Italy, in Belgium, Netherlands, France, Austria, Switzerland, and that includes Eindhoven Metal Meeting, Brain Crusher from Hell in Germany, and Unholy Congregation in Belgium. And it's going to be a blast. We're very much looking forward to it. And of course, we're going to be playing in Poland as well, which will be TRIVAX's first time. This is going to be a very special run, and we are going to be supporting our album, The Great Satan, which came out via Osmos Productions on the 30th of May earlier this year. So you can expect to hear a lot of those songs, and you can also expect to see us at the merch table. So please, if you're a fan of the podcast, feel free to come along and say hello at the merch table. I will be around, and so will the rest of TRIVAX, and we look forward to seeing you all in the flesh. There will be a number of other shows that TRIVAX are also doing outside of the tour, so make sure to keep an eye out on those as well. And of course, if you do also wish to support TRIVAX, you can visit our Bandcamp page. We've got very limited number of copies of The Great Satan available on there. If you go and check out and your format of choice is currently sold out, you can also get your copies directly from Osmos Productions. And with that said, thank you for your support and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
He thinks they're a hero in their own mind.
Yeah.
Or you resist doing it because you don't want to be an authoritarian, you don't want to be a bully, even though you know you kind of have to, or you're going to lose against the people who then come and force their way onto you. Is that kind of the paradox that you face?
Well, this is the thing that I always come back to, and this is what I mean. It's you look at, say, someone in 1939. Who is a member of the National Socialist Party, actually actively fights on behalf of the said party. That person doesn't think that they're a bad person. They think they're doing the right thing. But then you could also say the same thing about all the Bolsheviks who slaughtered so many people. Bro, they killed so many of them. I'm sure they weren't thinking
the Japanese get let off easy on World War II as well, because they always get let off because they got 2 bombs dropped on them, but they were doing horrific things.
Exactly. And this is the point. Exactly, that is the case. But the point I'm trying to make is that none of these people think that we're the bad guys. We're just gonna kill all these other people because we're just doing it out of spite, just because whatever. Yeah. Although to be fair, in the case of the Bolsheviks, I actually wouldn't be surprised if that's what they thought. But it's just one of those things. Yeah,
there's very few people who go out there and say, well, there's people who do it, but there's people within our own music scene who have done it. But aside, there are very few big movements of people going out there and committing atrocities and saying, yeah, we're doing this because we're evil. They think that they're heroes, that they're doing good for their people. And that's the essential human, that's the issue, right? That's the dark side of human nature, I think, is that you've got so many billion people in the world broken into little tribes that all think that they're all the main character in their own world and they're all the hero. So you're going to end up with atrocity. So.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, unfortunately, this is the way it goes. So just to kind of come back into it also, obviously I understand that you've done a lot of studies on obviously just Norse mythology in general. I know you've spent a lot of time researching it. So let's say in terms of other than perhaps the more fascination with the actual stories and the folklore. What are perhaps some of the things that you took from it and you thought, actually, you know what, this is a lesson I can apply to my day-to-day life, and that other people could benefit from this as well?
That's tough because it's sort of all holistic and that everything is sort of connected. In that I try to use it as a way of teaching people how to see the world differently. Um, but let me see. I think that go back to Havamal again. Havamal. There's
Hmm.
a pretty nice line. Uh, Havamal, for those who don't know, it's a often overly referenced poem, actually. Uh, that's supposed to be words of wisdom from Odin, right? It's actually several different poems crammed together. But in one of them, he has a line that says "Asia to gildeskuf," which means a gift demands a gift in return. And this is just a very small quote, but it sort of it's reflected in everything, not just in the Norse stuff, but in paganism and indigenous thinking around the world, which is that, as I said, going back to the part that humans are just part of a network, right? That we receive, we have to give. Everything that we take demands something in return. The world is not a commodity, and I think that that way of thinking about the world, engaging with people and with nature, and just your engagements with the world, that's a lesson that we can all sort of apply, that we can all take very seriously. That we live in an age of very capitalist, sort of everything is kind of commodity. You just buy it. But if
Mm.
you but if you look more at the world as something where I have grown up hunting, and I also do a lot of foraging and taking from the earth, and you
Cool.
want to have that respect given back. So you don't look at a river as just a river where you can dump shit into, or it's something where if you're going to fish in it and take things from it that you're going to eat, you need to treat it with respect. Otherwise, you're just poisoning yourself, of course. But there's this idea of the cyclic. This is essential paganism, is this idea that the earth or the gods or the spirits give to us, we give back. We give to receive. It's a reciprocal relationship, and I think that that's not just between us and the powers. That's a way of looking at the whole world. Is that
Mm.
you build a proper relationship with something, and that's more valuable than I give you money, you give me a thing. I
Mm.
think that that's a powerful way of looking at the world, um, and you see that throughout Norse, Nordic, as well as pagan thinking. That's just one thing. I don't
That's
know if it.
actually super valuable, by the way.
Oh,
That's
right.
such an important point. That's such a, like, makes such a difference when you start looking at the world through that
Yeah,
scope of what kind of value can I actually bring here instead of just taking, you know?
yeah, exactly. And if
Yeah,
everybody thought that way, we would maybe have a better world.
I
But
think so too. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, man. That very well put. I think it's such a, like it's the idea that in today's world people are almost conditioned to think, okay, every man for himself. Which, look, I've been guilty of that just as much as anyone else. And it's a work in progress. But if you think about it, I mean, we as humans, we are inherently communal creatures anyway. We're social creatures,
yeah,
and yet most of us are conditioned to think that it's every man for himself,
mm,
and to an extent you could say it is, but is it really? Is that the ultimate? Because I don't think so. No, because even like if let's say if your aim is to get wealthy, okay, fine. Nope, I'm not even going to fault that, but how are you
mm,
going to get wealthy? Oh, I don't know. I want to win the lottery. Okay, well, how about you actually bring value to your community and do it that
yeah.
way? You know?
You build each other up. So, and I
Yeah.
say all this, and I am not a very political person. So I don't want to be out here going like, he's an anti-capitalist. he's a socialist commie. I don't really, but this is more about the fundamental aspects of human engagement with the world and with one another. It's not about economics per se. It can be. Um,
But I
but
also think that I really hate to interrupt you there. Sorry, man. I
okay.
just had to get the thought across. But like that to me, like proper capitalism should be done in that way. Because I'm not an anti-capitalist person at all. But I do think that when it's done in perfect synergy with nature and the values that a person has, and the person is rewarded for the values that they bring to the table, then that's kind of perfect, really, if you think about it.
Yeah. So yeah. So I've sort of run into a dead end on that line.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted your flow there, man. But it's just it's something that I kind of think about a lot, especially when I see people having such a black and white view of the world in general. I just think that's such a shame, to kind of box yourself into wholesale ideologies rather than think, just the standard left or right or capitalism and communism. It's just like there's nuance to all of this, and the best of it is found within what works in nature, as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
and one of the things about nature is that it's very context based, right? It's where you are. Like you need to be able to like nature is very adapted to where it is and when it is. And people follow ideologies and they're just these massive ways of thinking that aren't very adaptable. Uh, um, and I have a hard time with ideologies in general. I don't know how a person can fall into a camp wholeheartedly. And people are doing it more and more today. I think things are becoming more polarized, and you get that a lot with dualism. Again, in America is the best example of it. Well, maybe not the best, but it's the one with a lot of a big spotlight on right now. But you've got these two parties, and what are they doing? They're just tearing themselves further and further apart. They can't even have a discussion anymore. Um, it's impossible to have a discussion uh, for many people in these camps, and I just find that it's very hard for me to relate to people who can do that when reality is so much more complex and issues are more complex.
Yeah.
I think it's because a lot of people want the easy answers. They want the good guy, they want the bad guy, they want the simple. I don't know. I do not think people are as smart as we give ourselves credit, and we like easy.
I think we've got the capacity to be smart, but
Hmm.
it almost seems like on a day-to-day basis, a lot of people are failing that test,
Hmm.
and that test being a test of critical thinking and thinking for
Hmm.
yourself. And I actually
But
think that isn't it so funny that like what you're describing there sounds so much like the mindset of organized religion,
uh,
and it basically, you can apply the same to both the left and the right. Like the left that I knew 20 years ago is not the same now. It's no different to some fundamentalist religious crazy person,
uh,
basically.
exactly, and they don't even. Well, many people don't even realize that it has changed.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things about becoming more extreme is you don't realize it if you're in the thick of it and you have this fucking echo chamber. You become more and more extreme and you don't even realize that you're brainwashing yourself, and that's what organized religion is. So I mean, and politics is politics is always blended with religion, but uh, yeah, they go hand in hand. I think
They do. Well,
so.
that two-party
But
thing that you're describing there is the perfect way to also control these people, and it seems that there's nothing anyone will do now, like basically in America, I feel when I'm watching from distance, it seems to me that both sides have kind of arrived at a point where where morality is completely out of the window, humanity is completely out of the window, and all that matters is scoring points for their team at whatever
yeah,
cost.
I 100% agree.
Mm.
If being a decent person mattered, at all, both parties would fall apart, because it's being just a good person doesn't mean anything. It just exactly as you said. It's just about the party, and your little political circle, and scoring points, because a lot of it is actually antagonistic now. It's not even to create something good for your people; it's to try and smash the other people,
Exactly. Yeah.
which is I well this is why one of the reasons why I make black metal is it's the only
Yeah.
it's the way to not to get away, but to come to terms with the well, to kind of come to terms with that darkness that's in all of us, that's there in the world. So you dabble with it, but it's also very cathartic.
That's, yeah, I totally relate to that. That's the exact reason why I do it as well. I've always referred to it as ad nauseum for people who listen to the podcast, but I always refer to black metal as musical shadow work, because to me, it allows you to tap into that darker part of yourself, and in a way, exercise it and actually face it, just so you can feel kind of normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I learned very young. I can't play any instruments to save my fucking life, but I put all my energy into to being a vocalist. Um, from a young age, I sort of realized that making music or singing or chanting or screaming, it taps into this primal part of you, and it sort of elevates you. You don't just. I don't even like to think of it as dark. It's the aggressive. It's the antagonistic. It's the destructive. It's this part. I don't even want to give it a name, but it's this part of you, and by tapping into it and sort of getting it out, or working with it, channeling it, you like yeah, it's you are empowering yourself. You're facing this part of you, but you're also coming into touch with something maybe bigger than you, or deeper inside of you that you're not aware of on the surface, and that helps to kind of change you on the surface. So you know this is why chanting, and this is why vocal stuff has been a part of ceremonies for thousands of years, because that's what it does to.
Mm.
And in black metal, we're touching that, or we're trying to go into the most extreme, violent, whatever you want to call it, a transgressive part of us that we're able to. So it's almost like we're reaching into the most extreme part of that primal energy. So yeah, shadow work, um, yeah, ritualistic at the least. So at least for me and you and maybe not every vocalist, but I think a lot of vocalists, that's why they become vocalists.
Absolutely. Well, I think if you that's spot on, man. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because if you look at it like this as well, just even the idea of doing vocals, and I happen to have actually been present in a space that's in a non-metal context that is ritualistic, and vocals are used to, the best I can describe it is to open up the space in the room. And there is something to that, like you can actually use human voice, and in the way that you channel it with your intent, and obviously the technique is involved, but there's something about it that just opens up a space, like if you just kind of go from the depths and, like if you can just like open up the room completely, and it's a powerful tool that I don't think that we get to interface with that as much on a day-to-day basis.
In some ways, I think it's the most powerful, because it's coming from the very essence of what a person is. And not to take away anything from my guitarists or the drummer, but and they're gonna listen to this, they're gonna be like, you're trying to say the vocalist is the most important member of the band. But
It is.
yes,
It's so important. You don't have to help with load-in.
I've already got the ego in the band, so why not
Yeah.
feed it more? But no, and this is
Yeah.
why I'm drawn to vocals. I think that
Mm.
as a human instrument, the voice is so powerful because uh, there's no link between us and the instrument. It simply is you. You're not manipulating something else. It's it's the sound of a human and what is everything that is inside of us coming out. And I think that's I mean that's it's very powerful. That's why like I listen to man, I listen to sometimes when I'm in the gym, I will literally be listening to Tibetan mantra throat singing chants because and it gives me the same stink face as the best riffs that I've ever heard.
Yes, bro. I've had the same experience. I love that kind of stuff. Well, that's actually why I've got this new project. Well, it's not even a new project, but we finally just finished mixing the debut album called Weird Stuff. And the band is essentially it's the same members as TRIVAX, but then plus two other guys. And it's basically the best I can describe it is like a mix of Icelandic Black Metal, High Lung slash Wardruna, and maybe bits of Primordial. That's kind of like the
Okay.
best I can describe it, you know. So it's an interesting thing. It'll come out next year.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, but that's the kind of thing that we've gone for. It's, you know, like we use a lot of like actual like a lot of actual tools and things that they would use in not just like a ritual setting, but even like in a prehistoric setting, because that's kind of like the theme that we've kind of gone for. It's about human survival against nature, you know, and the ice age and having to fight through that, and still having to like carry the bloodlines, and that's the kind of theme. It's just pretty interesting stuff. I have to.
Caveman metal.
It is not.
Yeah,
It's
that's cool.
essentially yeah. It's actual caveman stuff.
I like that. I've been reading. I've been diving into some shit on. I forgot the name of the period now, but that period when we were just out of the ice age, and we were because this is so far before written. Like this is so far back in human time that you can just
Yeah.
imagine what it's like to be just at that point, just a primate hunter gatherer with some of the animals that were around then are just crazy. So it's a fun period to sort of when you want an escape to read about. So that's cool. I look forward to hearing
Yeah.
that. But no, but it's yeah. But the vocals are I don't know. They're essential when it comes to tapping into. Um, Another place, I think.
Mm.
As you said, open up a space or to create a space or to bring you, or even as the one doing it, it's sort of like I say, it's cathartic for me because it's I don't want to call it exercising, but it is it's at least cathartic. It's ritualistic at the very least. Going into a place, connecting to something that deep, that that extreme, dark, violent place, and being a gateway for it is very powerful. So,
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. This is the way to do this music.
yeah,
Josh, my man, this has been such a pleasure to speak to you tonight. This has been a really fun conversation, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hope it's been good for you as well.
been great. Didn't even have to talk about Nexion.
No, we'll do that next time, man. Is there anything you kind of want to plug to people whilst they're listening? Obviously, you've just put out the new album. If people want to check that out, or if you've got any shows coming up, anything like that.
I mean, I don't know when this gets released. We're playing at Ascension Festival in Iceland
Oh,
next
cool.
week.
That's
And
a killer fest.
yeah, so I think that's in a little over a week we'll be playing. So I'm in Norway now, but I'll be heading to Iceland and playing that. I don't know if this will be out by then, but we're playing at Salton Festival in June. That's a killer festival too. So check that
Run
out.
by my good friend Gisli. Great guy.
Yeah,
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 he's a good
yeah.
guy.
And it's looking to be a lot of fun. And no, just I guess check us out. I mean, we're kind of new. I mean, it's our first album we released during COVID. So
All right.
this one is out now, so give it a listen if you want. And we just signed with Doomstar, so hopefully that means we'll be getting some more festivals and stuff that people can come out and see us. So.
That sounds killer, man. Yeah, and hopefully we'll actually bump into each other down the road sooner rather than later.
Sure that we will. So
yeah,
it's a small world.
It is, man. We absolutely will. Well, there you go, man. Josh, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate the good chat, and definitely took a few really nice pointers from this one. And to everyone else who's been listening as well, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Support Nexion. If you see Josh in person, go and talk to him about tonight's episode, and we'll see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations.
Nice.